When in the midst of sorrow, you can see up and looking down. On a brighter day, tomorrow will bring. You hear the voice of reason telling you this could never be done. No matter how reality seems, just hold on to your dreams.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Welcome to tonight's show, Life with Shenita, and we are going to talk with author Allie West, the Messologist. She is the author of a book titled A Dressed Up Mess, and she is going to share her story and her journey with us in hopes that it will inspire someone to continue to live a vibrant life being their authentic self. And before we bring her out, I just want to remind you all that Life with Shenita started with the goal to help people overcome life's challenges and to encourage them to live a vibrant life. I think most of you all know that my book, Is Your House in Order, was the beginning of all of this in an effort to help people get their personal affairs in order before they pass or before they deal with some type of sickness. And since then, the topics and conversations that we've had on this show are all related to really getting your house in order. Because when we think about living a life that's not authentic, living a life that's as Miss Allie West says, a dressed up mess, we're not living the best life, our best life. So I am hoping that the conversations and the guests that I have brought onto the show will help you live your best life. In addition to that, I want to remind us that preparing for the end of life is one of those things that we should all do. And I'm not sure if you've actually sat down and had the conversation or moved in the direction to get your affairs in order. But when my husband had his heart attack on June 30th, 2015, we knew that we needed to do A, B, and C, but we did not take the time to handle that part of our life because we were living our best life. And there were things that we left undone. So I want to encourage people to make time to handle their personal affairs. My book can My book, again, can be purchased through me or through Amazon, in addition to my second book, Abiding Love. So please support local authors. So now for the best part of this evening. Thank you all again for joining us each and every Thursday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And good evening again. I am going to introduce to you all none other than author Allie West, the Messologist. Good evening.
Good evening. How are you doing?
Wonderful. How are you?
I'm doing great. Glad to be here. Thank you for this opportunity, and thank you for the platform that you have to allow people to share their stories so that they can give their testimony and share about their experiences in order to hopefully impact or bless someone else through the process. So I'm glad to be here.
Yes, I am too. I think that, what you are doing on your journey is going to help so many people. And I'm glad that we connected probably, let's see, maybe 8 years ago. I'm thinking it was somewhere around 2012, 2013, because I think it was after I got married to Winston. And
Yes.
we got married in 2011, and I started back working with the extension 2012 February. I'm thinking it was sometime in 2012.
I think 13, 20.
Okay, 20. There you go. And so
Yep.
I'm so glad that we connected then, and we've stayed connected all these years. More
Definitely.
virtual than anything, but such mutual respect. And so I'm glad that I've watched your journey, and it has been a blessing to me.
Likewise.
Thank you. So I would like for you to introduce yourself to the audience.
Okay, awesome. My name is Allie West. I am an author, and you're probably wondering what in the world is a messologist, and I'll talk about that in just a little bit. But a little bit about my background. I'm a native from Tulsa, Oklahoma, but I spent most of my career for about 20 years, a little over 20 years in Atlanta, Georgia, in early education. Always had a desire to write. I would always start these stories or these books or write a poem or something. I have my friends and family all excited about it. And then I send them the first page and then that'll be it. I have all these 50 first pages. But in 2012, I started this journey when I discovered that I was a dressed up mess. And I started writing my story and my journey. And for me, it took about 7 years to get that story done. I published in 2019, and I'm excited about that. I published A Dressed Up Mess. I'm currently working on the second book in that series, Still a Mess, because sometimes when we recognize we are a mess, we don't make the changes and we continue in some of those same patterns and get some of those same results. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. And so much has happened, since those 8 years. I got married last year, and when I got married, I actually moved to Germany. So I am in Germany right now, about 6 hours ahead of you guys. So it's about 1 a.m. here, but you know what? You do what you have to do. You make the adjustments. So I am still currently adjusting to life in Germany. I'm adjusting to married life and adjusting to authorship. But definitely excited about sharing my story, my journey, and talking about what a messologist is and what it does and how it relates to the whole big picture.
Mm-hmm. Well, awesome. I'm excited and welcome again. And I'm just going to allow you to kind of share a little bit of your testimony.
Okay, absolutely. So A Dressed Up Mess, that is probably one of the things that people when they ask about the book or they see the cover of the book or they hear the title, that catches people's attention. And people are like, a dressed up mess. And what that is, from my experience, is that that's exactly what I was. I was a dressed up mess, literally and figuratively. Because what was happening is I could definitely coordinate some clothes. I could put it all together, have some wigs, weave, makeup, accessories, looking flawless, coming out of the house like there's no care in the world, going to work, doing all these things, but internally just a mess, just internally bankrupt, but yet holding it together and appearing like everything is to get together. And the real true discovery of being a dressed up mess was actually in 2012. I was actually cleaning out my closet. Imagine that, dressed up mess. It all comes together. And I found a list of prayers. And on this prayers, it was 7 prayers. I had dated the prayers. It was 7 years. And not one had been answered. And then I had their audacity, and I'm really serious, to get mad at God. Like, I was really mad, like angry, like, you just don't love me. You hate me. How could, all these years and none of these prayers are answered. And I had a nerve to have a fit. And late in the wee hours of that night, it was like, Creator came to me. I'd say it was like a voice really just prominent there. It could have been in a dream, but I know that I heard these exact words. You're a mess. You are a dressed up mess. You want all of these things to happen, but you're not doing the things that you need to do in order for those things to happen. And I was offended. It's like, who me? They want to list out all my greatness, all these wonderful things they're doing. But the truth was, I was a mess. Now, that particular incident didn't make the first book because I realized when I started writing the book, I actually started writing the book shortly after that experience. I call it my divine intervention. And when I started writing the book, it took 7 years. So it's something about me in the seven, right? So it took 7 years to actually finish the book. And part of that is life would happen. But then also part of it is that the story that I needed to tell was such a authentic, real story. And it dealt with topics and subjects that people don't like to necessarily talk about out in the open and expose that, just pull the scab off those sores or address your own ugly truths. And it's we like to dress up and hide. And so in the process of writing this book, there was times I was like, forget this book. I'm not doing this. It was too painful. It was a very emotionally taxing. There was some toiling and healing that I needed to do. And sometimes I wasn't ready for that healing process and what that meant. And so I put the book down. But this is how Creator works. Creator would bring people into my space because from time to time I put excerpts of the book on Facebook. And it could be, I'm not even kidding, 6 months, a year I haven't written. And someone would come and say, where's the book that you were writing? I thought you were writing a book. I saw X, I want to buy the book. And I'm like, oh, here we go. You're bringing people into the space to let you keep going. And so I finally realized in this process that I can't start from this vantage point of finding these prayers or the things that I was going through in 2012. I had to tell the story of how I got to that particular space, to that level of depression, to that level of sadness, to that level of just chaos, internal chaos. And so the actual book that I ended up publishing in 2019 was still a dressed up mess, but it took back to how did I end up at nearly 40 years old back at home, literally at my parents' house? How did I end up there? And so the book starts off in the space of me having to pack up everything I owned, my car on a truck, on a tow dolly, and my 2 children in a cab of this 26-foot Penske truck. And I'm moving back home into my parents' house. And when you talk about, in a space where you're just depleted and having to start over and in a space you don't want to be in, that's where I had to start with that story. And that was in 2010. I had, without giving all the book away, I had followed, what I thought the love of my life out to Arizona and thought we were getting ready to have this happily ever after. And I deposited that check and it bounced. It's like a bounce to the moon and back. And did not work out, to say the least. And to the point where I had to restart. And I had spent many years in Atlanta, but I was too embarrassed to go back to Atlanta. I was too embarrassed to go back, to Atlanta after that experience. I just left recently and I was going, I'm getting married now, I'm ready to have my best life. So I thought, and I went into hell in the belly and had to go home and start over. So I actually was at home about almost 3 years. And so that's why I said 2013 is because that's when we met when I moved back to Atlanta after I had, had spent, life in reverse for a while. That's kind of the gist of it. I take the reader on this journey with me in dealing with the experiences of what that was like after that relationship, moving back home, the family dynamics, dealing with, depression, relationships, mentally, emotionally abusive relationships, define family dynamics when everything isn't perfect, like the relationship with my mother and myself, and having to relive some of that childhood stuff, those childhood traumas or hurts that we don't sometimes heal from or deal with, which then I was then seeing myself reflected in some of those same behaviors with me and my daughter. So I'm talking about real life stuff
Mm-hmm.
that swept under the closet, or we dress it up. And the types of decisions, like dating and being a single mother and dating, and the impacts of what that looks like with kids. So I'm dealing with all this heavy impactful stuff that people don't generally like to expose their truth. Like, I just kind of put it out there, and it was like people say, well, gosh, that was very bold, you did this, and what is people's feedback? And I'm like, it wasn't about them. This is my journey. If they wanted to show up differently, they should have behaved better or different.
Right.
And so this book is that journey. And you sound very long-winded, but that's what this is. This book is that journey.
I love it. I love it. And I'm sure so many people can relate to being a dressed up mess, even if they never ever admit it to the public. I
Yes.
had several people call me about the show topic and said, wow, I can't wait to watch it because I can relate to the description.
Yeah.
So, and I like the fact that you said you went through the chaos and the depression and the relationship and having to relive your childhood and get through those painful moments and deal with the real ish, as we say, that we
Yeah.
sometimes want to hide under the rug and we need to talk about, we need to work through.
Absolutely.
And I certainly can relate to being a dressed up mess for years,
Yeah.
and dating men, and one relationship end and I'm in another one and I have children, and what did that look like? And sometimes you want to sit back and say to them, what was the picture like of growing up with your mom? What was that like? Let's talk.
Exactly.
And so we've had some of those conversations, and I've had to go back and apologize to those children, even as adults, many times for being that mess.
I'm sitting here as you're saying, and I'm going, gosh, was you there? Were you? Yeah, because I remember one time asking my daughter, saying, what was it like being my daughter? And because there was so much of, just like you said, the mess and those decisions, and you're saying, oh gosh, I can relate to that. I'm going, gosh, did you write this book with me or experience this life with me? And I have too had to go back to my children and apologize for that, that mess of a mother that I was not prepared for, what I was granted in doing for them, and learning and seeing some of those implications of my choices in their behaviors or some of the things that they did, and me wanting to go back and, God, can I just go back and replant this stuff? But what I've had to learn also as well is not live in guilt, because the world will have you living in that guilt forever. And if you constantly are living in guilt, you can't progress. You can't get from your mess to your masterpiece. You can't get out of that situation if you're constantly reminded of every mistake that you've ever made or everything that you've done wrong, and being penalized and either punishing yourself or your kids, or punishing you for it. You get to the space where you have to say, well, here's where we are now, and let's build up on what this looks like. Exactly. And that's exactly what I've had to do with my children. And because of some of those, but what I truly say, Shenita, is that we date to our self-esteem. And we attract, meaning that I kept saying I attract all these broken men, I want to fix them. But the truth was, I was broken and I needed to fix me, and not worrying about trying to take care of somebody else and fix them, and thinking I can love them through everything that they were dealing with, when self-love is what was in order.
Right.
That was what was the deal. But I didn't recognize that at the time. Like, for instance, this book takes place, I cover a time span in this first book, a flashback to like 2008, but the majority, 2008 and 9, but the majority of the book takes place in 2010, and we're 10 years removed from that. So sometimes in reading the book, or even in I'm currently working on my rewrites for my revisions for Still a Mess, which is the second book in the series. I'm going, who was this woman? Like, gosh, who was she? But I like being authentic to people, because people can see now and it looks like this. And when people only get a glimpse of your life, they fill in the blank. Well, I would like to believe that I'm in my masterpiece, but it's not a linear line. It's a circular, and you constantly grow and you learn and you develop. And so any day, even in my masterpiece, from my mess to my masterpiece, I still can be a mess. Some days I'm still a dressed up mess.
Yes.
Now I can recognize it. I can rebound from it. I can get out of it quicker. I don't allow those old habits, those comfort zone habits, to inhabit and get into my head. And then now I'm sinking back down into a depression, or, making some of those poor choices that I made, in that time. So what I definitely like to tell people is, from mess to a masterpiece is a journey. And it's a circular journey, because at any space and time, different parts of your life can be in any of those stages. And I like to call them, as I name them personally, addressed a mess. I recognized it. And what I did was, I was still a mess because I wasn't ready to deal with my issues, not to that degree. And then I had to address the mess, because I kept seeing the same patterns over and over again, whether that was in a relationship or a job or a man or a friendship, whatever. I would see some of those same patterns in how I was dealing with family and, my kids or whatever. And I'm like, in order to change, I have to I have to do the work. It's me. It's not everybody else. It's not them. I'm not going to blame him, my mother, my daughter, whomever. It's me. I have to deal with my mess and do this work. And so when I decide to address the mess and then make my mess my message through the book, through the, speaking engagements or things of that nature, and now I'm living in my masterpiece, because I've learned how to masterpiece in my life. And that a messologist come from, not somebody that's messy, but I've dealt with enough mess in my own internal life, and that of family, friends, etc. I've seen enough mess. And just like you said, you can identify with being a dressed up mess. Your mess might not exactly be my mess, and for the next person or anyone who's watching this or will watch later, but if we will be honest with just ourselves, we've all been a mess at some point in time in some area in our lives, and until we do the work to address it, we'll still see those same things replayed out. And that's what I got tired of. And you mentioned something about an aha moment when we had talked, and I'm like, that was my aha moment. Like, if you don't do anything about this, you're going to keep seeing the same thing. How does the same, like we said, relationships, how does the same man keep showing up? He showed up in Arizona, he showed up in Atlanta, he showed up. It's me.
Right. You're the common denominator.
Yeah, I am dead. And so when I started addressing the mess and doing the work and doing research and studying, and that's when the apologies start coming, to my kids and to, having to go to friends or, different people and apologizing for some of the behaviors, intentional or not, and taking ownership of my life. And recognizing who I am, whose I am, that Creator is inside of me, and believing and knowing that allowed me to start making different decisions and choices, which now leads me to my masterpiece. I know how to masterpiece. I got it doesn't. Some of those types of situations we don't even float in the same boat. We don't vibrate on the same energy. I don't even have to deal with those type of things anymore, because I've elevated my thinking, my energy, my peace. And so this is part of the journey. The book, A Dressed Up Mess, is just the beginning of that journey. It is a journey that I'm, currently still living, but I'm in my masterpiece stage right now.
I love it. I love it. And just piggybacking off of that, was there a time during this particular place in your life where you were a dressed up mess that you reached out to and talked to someone, whether it was a therapist or a minister or someone to help you through the stages of being depressed, or I'm a mess and I need to rectify this? Did you ever reach out to someone?
That's a great question. So let me even take it back a little bit further. Throughout life, I've dealt with bouts of depression. And so even before I wrote the book, at one point in time, I did go to therapy, but I didn't feel like I was getting what I needed out of it. So it wasn't something that I stuck to for, I went for probably a few months, and then I was like, I'm not getting what I need out of that in terms of moving through that journey. So this really, when I say a labor of love or a self-affirmation or discovery, was me finally getting to the space where I was like, okay, something has to be done because I cannot keep doing this. So in this space, really kind of that, I'm jumping around, but it all will come together. So in all of this journey, my dad transitioned in 2014. He passed away. And I'm the baby, daddy's girl, and everything. So I say that in my greatest tragedy was my greatest triumph, because here it is, the giver of life no longer has life. And I really went through depression. I'm talking about a serious bout of depression in that space. I'm talking about rolling in the floor in the closet, like, Lord, just take me. I don't want to be here anymore type of depression, like not getting up in the day, just going through the motions and on auto. And in that space is when I turned to a spiritual advisor. Like I was just praying. I started praying a different prayers, still praying some of those other prayers back in the day, Lord, this bill or something minimal. I start asking Creator for more greater things, for knowledge, wisdom, comprehension, understand. Help me. Who am I at the seat of my soul? That's what I ask God. Who am I at the seat of my soul? Who do you see me as? Because here's how I see me, but really, how do you see me? And I'm going to give a warning to anyone. That was the craziest question I could have ever asked, because I got shown and my life got turned upside down. But in that space is what I needed, because it allowed me to become aware of who I am in Creator's eyes and started to operate my life as such. So really, the therapy was getting to break point to where I truly went to Creator, not begging to die like I had before, but asking, who am I and who do you see me as? And my prayers was different. I'm asking for wisdom. I'm asking for knowledge. I'm asking for comprehension. I'm asking for like-minded people. Bring the right resources, bring the right people, bring the right experiences in my life. The toughest lesson for me was learning that I was the co-creator of my existence. And I was like, it's not my, it's not my fault, that's this person's fault. But when getting to that space of learning, no, it's you. Mm-hmm. It was the toughest lesson for me. And I had to walk through that. And that meant a lot of loss of some friendships, some long-term friendships, some changed relationships within the family, leaving employment situations that was not, beneficial to my personal growth and development. It was a lonely walk, but I needed to do that. Mm-hmm. And this is the other side of that walk, is where I am now. Then when I speak about masterpiece, if I'm learning to master peace in my life, I can recognize this stuff. I know what to do now and how to do it, and can rebound or recover from, those blows in life, not allowing that stuff to fester and become illness and become depression and become, whatever, stress and what other ailments that manifest in our body because of those emotions that we don't attend to.
Mm-hmm. And I remember watching you through some of those parts of the journey.
Yeah.
Depression, loss of your dad, all of that. Because sometimes you would say it on social media. And so, and then of course I would try to respond in a positive way to just encourage you during that time. But I remember that.
Yeah, that was a journey. Yeah. But sometimes people say, well, I'll do it all over again. No, that is not my story. I do not want some of those experiences all over again. And that's why I'm so transparent. Like you said, I would say it. That's one of the things I can definitely, I am very authentic and transparent. in that space, what I was feeling, it would be there. You said I would say it, I would deal with it and be there in that space. And I think that that's one of the things that has helped me along the way, is that when I relate to people and connect to people, it's an authenticity there. It's a transparency there. It's no, oh, I have it all together and you don't. It's like, no, this has not been together. And some days I'm still not together, but let's figure out solutions and how we can help. And that's my thing. This is even the story is, it's not about you. Help somebody else that may be experiencing this, but that may not have the words to write a book, or may not have the words to put it all over Facebook, or have more, they want to be more private about the journey, but they do need some help. I do get a lot of inbox and text messages and emails and all that stuff where people are experiencing things and need someone to talk to in a non-judgmental environment and tell me that the book has helped them. And so that's been part of the journey. I'm grateful for having these experiences, but a lot of them I don't want to relive.
And one of the things that I've learned on my journey, and I'm sure you have too, is that our journey is not for ourselves, although we are the co-author of it many times and we're leading the way, but it really is for someone else.
Yes, that's the aha moments. Those are the moments where it's like, so this really isn't about me, because I'll have an experience and then sometimes it comes back so quick, and then someone has an experience that's similar and they are looking for somebody to talk to or listen or guidance, and I'm going, oh, that's why we did that, critter.
Yes.
Yeah, so I totally get it, because I definitely have those moments as well.
Mm-hmm.
But, I'm grateful, because without those experiences, we wouldn't be talking now.
Right.
The book never existed. The Messologist is, the Messologist people is someone who specializes in turning messes into masterpieces.
I love it.
What my platform is, how to help people turn their mess into masterpiece. And I'm always coming with acronyms and stuff like this. And so in this space, mess is those minimal experiences shadowing your success. We can turn those into meaning experiences that are successful stories. That's the mess to the masterpiece journey. That's helping people who are ready to identify and do the work. Because sometimes we may know this about us, but it requires a commitment to make the change in your life. Right. And sometimes we're not committed to those changes.
Right.
And so my journey is when people are ready, they may be in different stages. Like I said, dressed a mess, still a mess. When you're ready to address the mess and move it to your message and your masterpiece, that's why I'm constantly, this is what the Messologist does. I turn messes into masterpieces. I've had enough experience in it. So this is, how that got coined and branded.
I love it. And we have shared some of these, but in no particular order. I would like for you to share 3 main things that you've learned about yourself during this time. And you kind of shared a little bit, but I want you to share 3 things specifically that you learned about yourself. Again, I'm sure you shared them prior to, but I want you to share them in this space right here.
One of the main ones, and that I just kind of talked about that a little bit, as being the co-creator of my existence. Like, I have ownership and responsibility of how I show up in the world and the experiences that I have, because what happens to us externally is what's representative of what's going on internally. And so we attract what we put out. And so what I've learned in being the co-creator of my existence is it's my decision, my responsibility, my choice to put out love, to put out gratitude, to put out a success mindset, to put out good things into the world. It doesn't mean bad things won't happen, but it means that I know how to navigate that. The majority of what will come to me is what I put out. So that is definitely one of the lessons that I learned in it. And forgiveness, because there were so many times where I held on to the hurt of what someone did, or even like we talked about earlier, the results of what happened in experiences with my children because of my choices. So I held on to unforgiveness for myself and unforgiveness of others. in that journey and what happens in that when you are holding on to all that anger and hurt and guilt and unforgiveness, you are manifesting disease and discomfort in your life. You are just manifesting chaos in your life. And when I learned how to forgive others as well as myself, it was like a load lifted. Like now I have room for my masterpiece. Now I have room for my growth and development. Now I have room for all of that. And one of the other things that I've learned is to just completely, and I've done this a lot, but when I realized, yeah, you hid stuff or you dress it up, but to live my life authentically,
Yes.
unapologetically, my best life and my best experiences, I have learned how to enjoy life and live life, like not just exist, but to thrive in life, even in a global pandemic, even in when everything is topsy-turvy, even when the world's dressed up mess is undressing, being undressed and being exposed.
Yes.
I learned how to live my authentic self and have joy in my life and in my heart and in my space through it all. Now I truly understand, count it all joy. I
Yes.
truly understand that, that weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning, because even in chaos, I can still find joy and I can still laugh. So those would be the three of the main things that I've learned on this journey.
Yes. Yes. And I just have loved watching your journey, and particularly since you got married.
Yes,
And I know that marriage came as a result of you being in this new space in your life.
you are absolutely right.
Yes. And
100%.
yes. And so just watching you and David and you leaving the area, moving to Germany.
No, right? A whole new world, a whole different content.
Yes.
Yes, you hit the nail on the head, because in my healing journey, in my healing walk, part of what I learned is to not focus on what I didn't want to experience, because I could give you a laundry list before of what I didn't want in a mate or in a person, or what I don't want to experience. But when we keep saying that, that's what we get. But I learned how to change the dial onto what is it that I want to experience. So I tell him, I will definitely share the story with you and who's ever watching. When I tell you I started working with a spiritual advisor, when I was making all these changes, when all this, my dad had passed and I was, rolling in the closet and God, take me now. That was real. Then I was rolling around crying. I could laugh and smile about it now, because I know God be like, man, we just need to put all the angels on her watch, because she's just my guardian angel be like, I'll take 3 for her. Just I'll take 3 of yours. Just take her. But no, seriously, in this walk, as I was learning how to accept my role and my responsibility in my life and in the decisions that I made and being the co-creator of my existence, I, was encouraged to journal and write down the things I wanted to experience. So when I wrote down the things I wanted in the mate, and I wrote it like it was a story or a book and what I wanted to experience. I remember years before I would just do lists, but I wrote it in the types of things I wanted to experience. So I wrote this journal, and this was in about 2017. And I look at it from time to time, then I, had put it away, or it was somewhere in my room in a stack of books or journals or whatever. And I remember having a conversation in 2019, just before I was getting married, like maybe about a month or so before I was getting married. I was speaking with my daughter. I have a 26-year-old and a 26-year-old daughter, and a 19-year-old son. I was talking to my daughter, and we were talking about relationships, and she was like, I'm learning how to manifest and do some things and work through, we've been growing together. And she was saying something about relationships. I said, oh, well, write it down. And, she's like, well, I've done that. I was like, no, you have to write it down, what you want to experience, and be very detailed. And I said, I did this before. So now we're in 2019. And I said, I went home, we were driving, talking. I got home and I said, I wrote it in a journal. And I'm like, gosh, I haven't looked at this journal in a while. So I go to the journal, and it's right, I went and I found it. It was in my room in a stack of books. And I go and I flip through it, and I get to this space where the person I have been working with told me to write down what I wanted to experience in a mate. And when I start reading it, I'm reading it out loud to my daughter, and we both almost simultaneously go, "Oh my God, you got it. You got what you asked for." And I will say that David is in the high 90s. I would say 95, 97% of what I wrote down in 2017 of what I wanted to experience in a mate. And she was like, "You got to tell him." And so that night when we talked, and at the time he was in Germany, I was in Atlanta, I said, "I need to share something with you." And when I started reading it, he thought that I wrote it that day. He said, "You did not write this to you." I said, "Yes, I did." He said, "That's us." I said, "I know." And so I encourage anyone who's listening to
Yes.
this,
Write it down.
whether that's in a mate, whether that is a goal or plan, a business or a change or whatever it is that you want to do, write it down. Don't worry about what you don't want to experience. We don't leave that alone. Who cares? Write about what you want to bring into your life, what you want to manifest, what you want to experience. Focus on those things that you want. That's like having that faith of, calling those things that are not as if they are. And write those things down and meditate upon those things you want to experience. And I guarantee you, if you do the work, if you start changing your mindset and speaking it and speaking a different language and acting up on that, writing stuff down, because that writing is your contract. That's your John Doe or your Jane Doe on it. You are sealing the deal with this contract. What is it? Write the vision, make it plain, right? Yeah. If you are doing these things, Creator will go to work. The universe will go to work in concert to bring those things into your path, because the word does not come back void when you are making that request. And that has been my experience. That's what you see manifested in this marriage. I didn't know that Creator was going to create a way where I come work on federal contracts in Germany, meet my husband, get married, and move to Germany. Who does that? But that's exactly, it was like, this got to be the craziest thing in the world, but it's what was happening. And my husband, when we met and connected, I liked him as a friend. I had zero interest in him as a mate. Like, I had none whatsoever. My husband is quite a bit older than I am. He was just a really nice guy. He was kind. We were here on this contract. He was nice to everyone, as a part of our group. We just kept in contact. I never saw this coming. And it just developed into it. And I'm like, wait a minute, Mary, this is here. We're married now, So it's kind of, we laugh about it, kind of that fairy tale thing, but it was a result of exactly what you said, me changing my life, me changing who I was to then get the things that I desired and the things that I wanted in my life, the changes that I wanted to see, because I saw so much of those patterns of the same result, but not making any changes, and then wondering why. And then constantly, I'm not kidding, I'd be mad at God or questioning Creator about this, but it was actually me who needed to do the work. And so if nothing else, if no one gets anything out of this tonight besides this, you can live, you can do, you can experience anything that you want to, if you believe it and get it in the inside, get it in your head and your psyche and that subconscious, that these changes can be made and it will happen. I am actually walking, living proof of that. And we didn't sit and say, well, you say this and I say that. No, you're saying, no, I saw it. I've seen this position happen. I'm not paying you like out loud. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not paying you to say this. This is what you've seen it happen based on my changes and my experiences. That's why I encourage people to, live your best life, change your mess. And it sounds messy, but sometimes it can be a mess. Let's just admit it is, but you can make those messes into meaningful experiences that are successful stories in your life, and sharing your message and living your masterpiece and living your life in peace. Regardless of what happens, is possible, because I have been, like I said, I'm very transparent. I dealt with depression for many years off and on. There were times, I'm telling you, I was begging to die, and that's serious, begging to die because I did not want to live in the space and the experiences that I was having. But Creator saw it fit to
pull you through.
pull me through that
Mm.
and help me to recognize who I am, whose I am, and how to move mountains
Mhm.
and change my experiences. And so that's where the living, out loud, living authentically, living unapologetically comes from. Um, that's where it comes from. I have a deep rooted joy now where there was so much sadness, where there was so much depression, where there was so much doubt, where there was low self esteem, where there was depression. But I dress it up. You wouldn't be able to tell by looking at me because I dress it up. Even to the point we talked about it, where I owned a online clothing boutique at one point in time. That I could dress it up and I could dress other people up and I can encourage people to the 10th power, but then I'm living in my own internal chaos.
Mhm.
And so you can make those changes if you commit to the change in your life. And that's definitely my messaging now. And just always encouraging people that it doesn't mean I've arrived. I've never arrived fully. It's personal growth and development is a lifelong journey. I'm constantly reading and researching and looking at documentaries and looking at ways to bring great or grand experiences in my life and how I can share those with other people. That's definitely part of the walk and journey now.
And I experienced the same thing in terms of writing down specifically what I desired in a mate before my husband, Winston Connolly, came into my life. And so
Wow.
and I never would have chosen him.
Oh gosh, we definitely have a similar story.
Yeah, I'm thankful he chose me. And
Yeah.
I encourage women and men, as you said, to write it down, to be very specific about those things that they want to experience, knowing that, it's possible
Yes.
because it has happened for others and it certainly happened for me. Although I didn't have a long journey, but the almost 6 years that I had were 6 of the best years of my life. And I am hoping that I will experience that love again.
That's
But
awesome.
I want to encourage them, as you said, to do the work, because no matter what work is, whether it's to lose weight, whether it's to gain your confidence, whether it's to be successful in your business, whatever the work is, we must be willing to do that and be committed to that.
That's it. Like it's as I am currently, like I said, it's a journey and I'm currently moving in my mess to masterpiece space. And I said, these principles, these are universal principles. They'll work no matter what if you do it. Changing your thought process, getting rid of messy thinking, getting rid of that, I can't attitude and that's for somebody else, or that negative mindset. Speaking a different language, there are certain words that I just do not use in my vocabulary anymore, such as any day, one day, someday. Those are non-existent. So you're not going to meet a goal, whether that's losing weight or whatever, on those days because they don't exist. It doesn't give you anything. It's a filler. The word try is a failed attempt. We don't, we say, oh, good try. No, this is how I look at try. When I don't really want to attend something and people say, come to this or you want to do this, and what do we normally say?
We'll try to make it. We know that we're not going to make it.
Yeah, we know it. But here's what it does. I'll try. Get you off the hook. It stops
It gives you an out. It gives you an out. I didn't commit.
Right, you didn't commit and gets you off the hook. And then, Monday comes, you see the coworker or whoever later, and you'll be like, well, I tried, but something else came up. So try, I stopped using that word because we commit. Like, I'm trying to lose weight. I've said that a million times. Right. And it's no commitment there. So getting rid of those non-actionable words, those low vibrational words that don't mean anything. And whatever it is that you want to say, I'm very passionate about this stuff, but whatever it is that you want to experience, put some passion and feeling about it. Have you ever talked to somebody and said, how you doing? And they're like, fine. No, you're not.
Right.
You are feeling like put the feeling into whatever it is that you want to do, because that's how the subconscious gets activated. It's activated by your feeling and you're talking about and your energy that you put in it. And then writing it down, because now you're seeing it and doing the work is the progress. And that's the mess to masterpiece journey. I kid you not. You're differently, you feeling differently in whatever it is you're doing. You're speaking differently. You're writing it down. You're doing the work, and you know are seeing the fruits of that labor. You're seeing the end result. You're seeing the manifestation, and that is really, that's my message. That's more than anything. And on any given day, I'm still a mess at some points in time.
But aren't we all?
Yes. So
Yeah.
don't. I tell people now, look, it ain't always a bowl of cherries, and it ain't always great. Some days I'm still a mess,
Right.
but I know how to recover and bounce back to where I'm not sinking into a depression of not wanting to move forward and not wanting to, live. Like I
Right.
can really recall times where I just was ready to give up completely, and I'm so glad that you did not, answer that.
I understand it. And
Yeah.
I totally agree with everything you have said. And I am hoping that your message of mess to a masterpiece will reach the masses
Thank you so
and
much.
that they will order your book, Dressed Up Mess.
Yes.
And beyond that, they will work on themselves to become who they are meant to be on this journey.
I thank you for that. And I tell people all the time, it's funny, just a quick story about it. So, Dressed Up Mess. And I've had readers of different, races, all ages, all these different things. It's for grown people. Now, this is grown people stuff. Let me just be very clear on this. This is not PG. I deal with real life stuff. So I deal with sexuality, sex, sexuality. I don't always use the proper words. There are some pathology in the book. So it was the experience. I take people with me through this experience, but it's funny. So I've had readers, my oldest reader today is 92. And it's so funny. Her niece was buying the book for her, and I was going, now look, I don't need you looking at me upside my head when you get in this book. What in the world? And so she asked me, she said, I was signing the book for her, and she said, is it juicy? I said, yeah. She said, I said, yeah. She said, my kind of girl. That's what people want to read. And I'm going, Lord have mercy. So it's funny that the ones that I'm always safeguarding, the older ones, and I'm like, look, I cuss in this book. I talk about sex. I'm dealing with my life and my issues in this book. And they are the ones that are like, please. They're like the
They're mature.
Yeah, they're the ones like whatever. And I remember this lady, she's a Caucasian lady. She's about 78. She was one of the early readers. And she inboxed me one time on Facebook. She said, I read the book. It was great. We need to swap stories. And I'm like, what? So I get all kinds of interesting things. And even from men have definitely read the book and have related to pieces in the book, have, did some self-check and have contacted me and like, sis, wow, I saw me in this, either in a character of a person or in some of the behaviors or experiences. So it's relatable. That's one of the things that I definitely get, is that it's a relatable journey. But I do tell people this is not for kids.
Right.
One more funny story. I promise I'll stop. But I have to share this. So I have a friend, I actually met her here. She went back to the States, and she has small children. And one day she sends me this video and this picture of her 5-year-old with my book. And he's just going, and she said, I walked in the living room and he had your book. She said he was reading it. She said, because he's, 5, he's learning how to read. She said he was into the book. She said, I had to pull it away from him. And I said, Lord, please.
Oh, my goodness.
So we laugh about it. So she told me the other day, she said, I'm looking for my book. She said, I hope we don't have this book again. I said, will you please put my book away?
Right. Put it in the safe.
So it's readers of all ages, but it is for adults because it really has adult content and deal with adult issues that, it's real. It is.
Wonderful. Well, if you would share, out loud your website, I know it's, flowing there. How they can get your book with the audience as we prepare to close out.
Okay.
that would be awesome.
Okay, absolutely. Thank you. So my book is available on my personal website, which is alliewest.com. And it is also available on Amazon. Right now, the paper book is available on my website, but after Sunday, we'll actually have it available. So if people want the ebook, they can also get it from me directly on my website. But the ebook is available currently on Amazon and on Facebook. And I am in revisions of book 2, which is still a mess. It is a series of books, and that will be available in October of 2020. So that's coming out soon. And of course, I love to interact. Guys, you can follow me on my social media platforms. That's at Messologist on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I have a YouTube channel that is coming up, as well as building a Facebook group. You know, I'm building this as we go. Being an entrepreneur, authorship is a job, and you know, I'm building, and I would love to gain more followers and fans and interact. This is how I act all the time. I'm very personable. I have a very distorted sense of humor, find crazy things to laugh at, but definitely check me out. And one other thing that is coming up on alliewest.com as well, we talked about, you know, I used to have a online clothing business. So a branch of that, I'm putting all things I love into this space. We will be able to get clothes at Allie's Closet, which is coming soon as well. And I have Messologist gear. I have, you know, clothes, fashion clothes, all of that stuff will be available there. So I'm excited about this journey.
Yeah, so hopefully they will, you know, become your friends on Facebook and Instagram and see all the fabulous things that you're doing and stay up with you. So, you know, I love to connect people to resources, and that's a gift that God gave me. And so hopefully they will definitely connect like I have over these 8 years, 7 years, 7 years with you. And I wish you nothing but the best on your journey and in that marriage. And say hello to David.
I will.
And we'll definitely connect and talk about some more of our personal journeys.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I have a sweepstakes that's going on right now. It actually ends in a couple of days, but it's some fabulous prizes that we're doing. We're doing it as we build up for the release of the second book, and I'll put the link in the comments on the live. So people want sweepstakes. It doesn't cost to join or anything like that. And you can enter into it as many times you want. And there's some fabulous prizes that we have that will be given away soon. So you can still get in on that sweepstakes, and I'll drop the link, or I'll even do the scan and the link for that in the comments as well.
Wonderful. And don't forget, guys, Allie's Closet, because she's a dresser. So baby, she has some fabulous pieces. And I know some of my friends that love to shop are on this live today. So I'm sure they will be looking to purchase some items from you.
I appreciate you. Thank you again for the platform. Just continue doing what you're doing. And just like you've seen my journey, I've watched your journey as well. And I'm so proud of you, and I'm grateful for you. And so just keep rising.
Thank you. Iron sharpens iron.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And thank you for whoever tunes in to listen and whoever will watch it later. I definitely appreciate your time for watching.
Yes, this was wonderful. Thank you for blessing me and the audience.
For sure.
And rest well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye. Good night.
So that was awesome. So I am hopeful that you guys enjoyed that conversation with author Allie West, the messologist. Dressed up mess. So many times we are moving about in this world and we dress up and we look great, but we're tore up from the floor up, as we used to say. And so I am hoping that we will revisit our mindset, and we will change some things that will change the outcomes of our lives, particularly being co-authors of our lives. So again, it is my desire to bring wholesome conversations, dialogues that will be an asset to your journey as well. Thank you again for tuning in tonight. We, as always, appreciate the audience, the feedback. Also, remember that I love you, but God loves you most, and He loves you best. Please don't forget next Thursday to tune in for another wonderful conversation with two people who I have a great deal of respect for, and I will share that soon. And again, author Allie West, Messologist, Dressed Up Mess. Her website is alliewest.com, and coming soon is Allie's Closet. Also, my book can be purchased on Amazon. Books, Abiding Love, and Is Your House in Order? Please take the matter serious about getting your affairs in order. Also, any questions or any show ideas, I would love for you all to email them to me, and we would definitely consider hosting a show on certain topics. You guys have a wonderful, wonderful evening, and take care.
When in the midst of sorrow, you can see her looking down. On a brighter day, tomorrow will rain. You hear the voice of reason telling you this could never be done. No matter how reality seems, just hold on to your dreams.